Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you today. My name is Dustin Cormier, and this is How to Rock Astrology. Today, we're going to be talking about an interesting combination here. We've got the moon in Libra with Venus in Virgo, and that would mean that Venus is in the moon's 12th house. This is not the easiest placement of these emotional planets. The 12th house from the moon has a emotional surrender nature which can be applied in a constructive way, but it probably won't with Venus being debilitated in the sign of Virgo. And this sucks for the moon because the moon is trying to develop its security through Libra, through the relationship, which means that your security that you're trying to build through your relationships means that there's an emotional compulsion in a certain level because the moon is close to debilitation here. It's close to being in Scorpio. It's right next door to Scorpio. So there's an emotional compulsion to secure your own emotions through your relationships. And your relationship nature is going to be very fickle by having Virgo in the sign of by having Venus in the sign of Virgo. And there will be an emotional despondency, an emotional loneliness, a feeling like you cannot get along with anybody, but yet at the same time that you have to get along with somebody. And so you're probably going to feel like you're just going to latch to whatever partner that you can, and you are going to abide by the value that you apply, a practical value that you give to them, and that will be the only way that you can draw out this feeling of emotional relationship security that your moon desperately wants, which means that you might just completely go about seeking a good relationship for you in the wrong way. You're just looking for what you can secure your emotions by being practical about the needs of the other person. The classic thing of Venus and Virgo, looking for a partner who they can fix and perfect, is kind of really strongly at play here, almost to the point where you could be like a doctor who brings patients in to heal them and gives them like bad snake oil and things that actually don't help them. But I'm thinking like a pharmaceutical doctor who someone comes to them and the pharmaceutical doctor gives a bunch of drugs that don't actually help the person but keeps them coming back in. The moon in Libra is actually too nice and really wants to be a good partner. So you wouldn't, like, nobody would consciously do that unless your moon is super fucked up. But you might unconsciously find yourself hoping that you don't actually fix everything in your partner, because then what you based your relationship on will begin to get fickle. And throughout your life, you might find that you get used in a way where you help a person get into where they want to be in life, and they come to find that they don't actually want you or need you after you've fixed them. This is a common thing that happens here, and that's why the 12th house energy relates to loss in some ways. Being in the 12th house from the moon means that you're going to, through Venus, you will probably lose some of your relationships and some of the sentimental feelings that you try so hard to put onto people might get lost and just wasted in some ways. Ultimately, the 12th house loss has an emphasis of divine compassion if your Venus is supported well enough. This can make for somebody who actually can be a saint, somebody who serves selflessly for people, understands that the service that they do is ultimately going to get pissed away and that they won't finally be able to keep it for themselves, or that the other person might not express that they fully appreciate it. Although if your Venus has support, then you might feel like even though the love that you share with people disappears, every bit of love that you give in a meaningful way, coming from you meaningfully, is meaningful in that moment. And even if the many partners leave you, if you can understand, especially from a Krishna perspective, that all love is still love, then you won't feel terribly bummed out at the Venus level about this in the long run. It's a good way to learn the divine acceptance of the fact that nobody owes us anything. Nobody owes us their love and companionship and partnership. And you might learn this the hard way, but you might in fact learn this. Thankfully, by the way, I have Venus in Virgo as well. So I can deeply relate to this placement, although I have Sagittarius moon, so it's different moon. But I can relate to the idea that what I was going to say is, thankfully, Venus is in the sign of Virgo. It's debilitated, but Mercury is a friend to Venus. It's the one thing about Venus's debilitation. That's why I said Venus in Leo is almost worse than Venus in Virgo in some ways, because by being in Virgo, Venus is delighted by its friend Mercury, which means that it learns and it develops psychological understanding through constantly maintaining awareness of the emotional things that are happening in their relationships, so that eventually they can come to deeply understand this and kind of become this saint-like person. And if your moon is well placed, and if your moon does not have too much afflictions, then you'll be able to find a partner who is not burned out by your desire to not be lonely, basically, and to have some sentimental affection. Mind you, the moon is in a difficult spot here as well, because it is also close to debilitation. It is only one sign away from Scorpio, where it's debilitated. So this is a tough one. Especially the final thing I'll say about how tough this is, don't worry, we're going to talk about it and talk about the good sides of it. But this can be a potentially tough combination, because again, the moon in Libra seeks security through relationships, and meaning through Venus, and Venus is debilitated, which means that the moon's experience of security is going to dwindle, and that can be a difficult experience. So we're going to talk about it. Before we do, I'm going to give a little bit of an intro here. Essentially, this is what I've been doing for all these videos. It's talking about the symbolism of the sun, Venus, and the moon. Essentially, you might have watched my other Sun-Mars series talking about how the sun is the king of the kingdom. It's our inner nature, and it's who we essentially are. Now, if the sun is the king, then the moon is the queen. The moon is a crescent sliver of our sun's inner nature. It is our earthly subconscious whose sign, house, and aspects reveal the form that our sun energy subsides through, and it has to subside through. Think of this as like the classic husband and wife archetype emerging from within all of us. It's like whether, no matter what gender you identify as, everybody has a receptive and outgoing nature. Everybody has this sort of like thing that they do with their lives, and also thing that they are with the people and family around them. It's the anima and the animus. It's the yin and the yang of the Ajna chakra. So the husband in this situation, the sun, the king inside of us, is what it is. We are what we are. But the sun is refined by his queen, the moon, who gives a rhythm and a healthy and realistic ceiling, or a realistic limit for the personality of the sun's potentials. Gives you an earthbound personality that your sun can actually communicate to people through. And it can't be everything, because we are not everything. We are one specific individual person, and that's conveyed by our moon. So the moon provides a healthy understanding for how the sun wants to present itself when the moon is working properly, when the moon is healthy. If the moon is unhealthy, like, think of it this way, okay? Imagine the husband, the king, the sun inside of us, the husband looks at the wife and says, "You know what, honey? You know what I'm really craving right now is just a nice big slice of blueberry pie." The wife looks at the husband and says, "But honey, you know what that does to your blood sugar." The husband, at this point, can say, "Screw you, I don't care," and eat the piece of pie anyway, but they'll suffer because they have a condition that would not be well served by that. So when the moon is working well, We listen to these individual needs that we need for our personality, for our earth life, for the life that we want to live outside of what we do. Essentially, without the moon, the person doesn't really know what they actually want in life, the person that they want to become and the people they want to be around. They do what they do, but they don't know what they actually want in life, because the sun's always going to do what the sun does. So, think of it this way. If we didn't need to eat, if we didn't need to sleep, if we didn't need to have sex and enjoy friendship and sentimental time, then we would just infinitely express the sun and just do our career and just do our hobby and do the things that we do, right? But that's not the case. We do need to eat. We do need to sleep. We need to have sex to a relative degree in fashion and rhythm, The moon is the lunar part of ourselves. The sun is like what we do at noon. It's what we do during the day. It's what we're for. But the moon is what we are after. When we come home, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., we come to retire home with our family, with our friends, with who we are when we're not trying. This is what the moon is. So if anybody wants to get into the personal quarters of the king, they have to do so through the queen, i.e., through the moon. Venus is the sun's self-enjoyment style. Venus is how we express affections, the sun's outgoing desire. But whatever Venus attracts is subject to the subconscious reaction complex of the moon. So, what does this mean in relationship to our present sign combination? We've already talked about it a lot, but essentially how I want to just come right out of the gate and talk about this combination is that the moon in Libra, first thing that needs to be said, is the basis for the psyche of what's going on here. The moon in Libra wants to be a good partner for their partner. It's the bottom line. And that is what is going to frustrate the desire of Venus in Virgo. And essentially, thankfully in this combination, Venus isn't necessarily being starved by the moon, unless if the moon, like the worst thing that could happen here is that if the moon is early in Libra and Venus is late in Virgo, so that they're within about 8 degrees and that there's a conjunction there, that means that the moon is starving Venus while it's in Virgo, and that would be a god-awful thing, because essentially at that point you probably would just ignore your need for an actual committed relationship, and you would just get superficial relationships with all the people around you, and essentially you'll always feel lonely and victimized because your moon's emotions are too sensitive in relationship to act. You're a deeply emotional person, and your suffocating need to commit to be with people causes you to be way too needy and dependent, and you don't trust your own value in relationships, and you're insecure in your relationships. And so what would happen is that your moon suffocating that Venus would eventually distrust your own nature and probably just cut people out completely and just try to be like a eunuch, like somebody who exists without a committed partner, and you'd feel victimized about it. Not everybody needs a partner, but nobody needs to feel victimized about that reality. In this combination, the only way to abide by it healthily is at some level to be careful of the desirous nature of being with a partner, of having neediness. If you can meditate, and especially if your Venus has some kind of delight from other planets, eventually you will experience loneliness and suffering, and you will feel like no matter what, you cannot be fulfilled in relationships in the way that your unconscious is set up to do. That is to say, like no sign combination could get the amount of satisfaction that this person craves. Now, regardless of, if the moon, now we're thinking of, for the most part, most people will not have the moon starving Venus in this situation, and they won't have that conjunction. So regardless of how it is, the moon in Libra is desirous and it's emotionally compelled to have a relationship. And what might happen over time, especially because Venus is in the 12th house from the moon, you will find again that nothing can satisfy you, no relationship can satisfy you. And so what you'll start to want to do is be independent. Just be somebody who doesn't necessarily need relationships, who's not that enjoyable in relationships, who doesn't seek to be all about the niceness and the gooiness of relationships. So, at that point, this would be kind of healthy at some level as long as you don't feel victimized about it. If you're healthy and maturely saying, my desire to be with relationships has caused me to just rebound into useless relationship after relationship, and now I want to pull myself back and develop an individual sense of who I am before I get into a relationship, that is the ideal way that this would work out. And the 12th house wastefulness will bring you to this point. But for most people, they won't understand that they're moving through this unconscious compulsion, and they will feel victimized. Now, it's good for you to get into therapy and to talk about all the things that you did where you thought it would be a good idea to isolate yourself, to get away from relationships, to not trust that you can be an enjoyable partner in relationships. Go to therapy for all those things and find out the fact that really it's probably all sourced from some rejection that you might have felt early in life. Some rejection either from your parents or from your siblings, where everyone just kind of thought that you were geeky or that you weren't of the social enjoyment that your moon in Libra would have wanted. Your moon in Libra probably desperately is like emotionally needy and wants to be appreciated for being able to listen, wants to be appreciated for the good, nice things that you do for people. But the Venus in Virgo causes you to be awkward about it and kind of say, like, I did this thing for you, I hope you like it. And the other person is just, you could be led, again, especially because the Venus is being delighted by Mercury, you will still express and experiment with your love nature. And this will help you to develop a sense that you need some kind of individual limit on the sentiment that you try to draw from people, on the emotional security that you try to get from people. And again, when this goes well, which it probably won't early on, you need to, eventually these symbols of Mercury delighting your Venus will tell you that you need to have some kind of psychological therapy with some kind of counselor, or read a book, a self-help book that makes you see yourself in context. What is everybody like in their relationship growth, or their ability to grow into being able to be in a relationship? And then how did mine go? Where did I miss the mark? And how can I psychologically come to understand what happened there and integrate it and apply myself in a healthy way in the future? That's Mercury delighting this Venus. That's one of the great graces of this combination, especially if your Mercury is well placed. Really, the placement of your Mercury is the end of this train, right? Venus, the moon in Libra needs Venus in order to have security. It needs relationships to have security. Venus, being in Virgo, needs Mercury in order to develop the psychological understanding of how my failures can be seen in the context of what everybody else is doing, and forgiven and accepted in myself. Accept that some part of yourself is a little bit dry and is a little bit simple when it comes to enjoying things in relationships. That's part of the beauty of Venus in Virgo, is that it's simple. It doesn't need all that much. These are the positive aspects of this thing. And you will come to understand this about yourself if you apply yourself to it. And then eventually this will help you to develop on the relationships that moon in Libra so desperately seeks. Ultimately, how this would go bad is if you don't learn. If your Mercury is in like Pisces, if it's conjunct Saturn, or if it's conjunct the moon, because the moon is an enemy of Mercury. So if Mercury is somehow hit in some difficult way, or if it's in the 7th house where it's not as happy, and strong, if it doesn't have strong shad bala, then the Mercury will not learn. And what will happen is that the Venus in Virgo will just keep going into relationship after relationship, trying to mentally perfect the circumstances of the relationship by offering something practical and useful. But ultimately, again, the partner will catch on to that, understand that you are doing this to protect yourself more than to enjoy. Venus is not supposed to protect itself. That's what Mars is for. Venus is supposed to enjoy. Venus is supposed to be of the abundance of the enjoyment of the human personality. So if this Venus is spending all its time trying to protect through the individual details of the Venus in Virgo, then it's going to cause trouble, and that is going to undermine the Moon in Libra, who is trying to develop security for itself through its relationships. So first thing you want to do with the Moon in Libra, again, it's too close to Scorpio. So you are a nice person. This is essentially a part of who you are. And you want to be useful to your partner. Don't even think about Venus in Virgo, because I know that's where your mind goes when you think that you want to be useful to your partner. Don't think about that right now. I'm talking about Moon in Libra. You want to be desired by your partner. It's the Moon is its security comes from the Libran sense that your partner actually enjoys being with you. They enjoy the way you sip your coffee. They enjoy the grace of the things that you do without even trying, without you realizing it. You know, the most sentimental and delicious thing that you could feel is if somebody looked at you and said, like, I like the way you do that. I like the way that you write. You're so sweet when you talk. And you think about like as Moon in Libra, you'll probably ask somebody, like, what do you want for your birthday? You'll know what they want for their birthday or Christmas, and you'll get it for them, and it caters perfectly to them. And you want them to do that for you a little bit too. And you want each other to appreciate this about yourselves. And when you get an ideal partner, they will understand and appreciate all the little things that you do, and they will tell you, you know, this is adding in the Venus and Virgo element. A good partner for you will tell you, you've done enough, my dear. You do so much for me. And just basically, they will tell you that they appreciate all the little things that you do, but also that you don't need to do it so much. And that will be nice for you to hear, because that means that you're making your mark. You're doing the thing, you're being the practical lover for your partner and helping them in the way that they want to. So a good partner for you will do this for you, but ultimately it's not their issue that you have such a deep emotional compulsion to be useful and practically useful to your partner. And as well, the Moon in Libra here wants to be appreciated for what it is for the partner, and the Venus in Virgo is simple. It essentially, like, your partner would be good if they just want to see that you are not babying them, but what's the word? Coddling them. You know, you are somebody who's wants your partner to appreciate that you're kind of coddling them and kind of just like massaging their back. You know, like for you to know that your partner works hard, gets home and is tired, and they don't really want to do anything, and they don't want to entertain you, because, you know, the Moon in Libra does want to be entertained, but the Venus in Virgo here is okay, will be a bit of a doormat at some levels. That's something you have to watch. Ultimately, you should develop on the communicating what you want in a healthy relationship through your partner. You'll get that over time, but essentially, no matter what, Venus in Virgo is not meant to have a big, extravagant enjoyment of any good things in life. You'd want to be admired for just being able to rub your partner's back. And one of the nicest things that you could have experienced with your partner is for your partner to tell you how much they appreciate that. And, you know, for your partner even to like do it for you or find out the things that you enjoy, and to take you on, you know, simple sensual enjoyments that are consistent and not necessarily engaging each other too much, you know, but you're doing it together. Like, it's this ironic thing. The Moon in Libra can probably be social and probably wants to talk more to the partner. But you appreciate a partner who can lie down beside you, the two of you, in a massage house, and the like picture of bliss for you is that you set up a massage appointment for your partner, or even better, your partner tells you, honey, I know what you like. The two of us, because the moon in Libra wants your partner to be invested in in loving you and giving you affection. You want your partner to, the greatest thing is that if your partner, he could be going and hanging out with the boys on every Friday like he does every Friday, but one day he surprises you and says, honey, I don't need that right now. What's important for me is that I could be hanging out with the boys, but that's not what I want to do right now. You are the most important person for me. The only thing I want to do with you is something that you and I would enjoy. That's what the moon in Libra wants. And what the Venus in Virgo would make it to be is that the two of you say, he sets up an appointment at a massage spa where the two of you are lying back holding hands and you don't need to say anything. You just need to look at each other, and there's that lovely, oh, that's you, and I'm lying beside you. That's that sweet smile. And then you both lie back, you're holding each other's hands in the massage parlor. And he is thought about this, planned it, paid for it, and done all this for you. And you're sitting here and holding your lover's hand and feeling that security deeply, deeply, deeply. And this kind of thing it's good for you because you don't need to talk. You don't need to actually engage your partner too much because it's simple. Because you're not, as a Venus and Virgo person, you've never been all about that. You've always just been somebody who wants to keep things simple and uncomplicated, right? So, the moon in Libra aspect of this person ultimately is a little bit too hungry for its own good, and you need to find ways of reducing the loneliness, the cosmic sense of loneliness that you might sometimes feel because you feel perhaps isolated and alienated at some level through the Venus in Virgo, but the moon in Libra desperately wants to have friendship. And so you are somebody who's probably kind of ill-dignified in the sense, like people can kind of make fun of you and pull your nose and pull your hair, and you'll say, "Oh, that's how we are. That's how we are." He bullies me, and it's kind of emotionally abusive, but it's how we've always been. You're the type of person who will put yourself under in a certain way and make fun of yourself, and ultimately, as time goes on, you can apply that sort of thing in a way that's just, whatever, but you're simple. That's the main thing that needs to be said, is that you don't need to put yourself down. You don't need to think of yourself as useless. You need to, if everything is working healthily for this combination, then your partner will recognize that you have a need to be loved or to be with somebody, really. To have a partner who you're with and shows the love and the connection is made there and the trust is made there, not through any extraneous, extravagant promises of having enjoyment, although you want your partner to enjoy the fact that you don't need those things. The moon in Libra wants to be appreciated for what you are. And what you are by having Venus in Virgo is a simple person not simple, but simple in terms of what you need to be happy. If you have a partner who appreciates that you are that simple, then you're where you need to be. And simply, you will be critical of each other, and you'll talk with your partner about what we should have done and could have done with this moment in that time. And that's just all Venus and Virgo stuff. But if your partner can appreciate that you talk about things in this way, that we wanted to go on this adventure and it went wrong for these reasons, we went to that massage parlor place and that person had bad breath while they were doing their thing and the lighting was crappy and all these things, and you kind of want to talk about all these things so that the next adventure is going to be better. These criticisms that you make, or even criticizing the partner, if your partner appreciates you for it, then you're in the right spot. But what the moon in Libra does is it pushes the agenda, trying to feel useful for what Venus is, because the moon in Libra is expressing itself through Venus. So you'll push the agenda, try to be admired for your usefulness as a critical instigator of the things that are wrong in the relationship. And your partner, you'll find your partner saying, honey, we get it. We're on the same page. You and I'm too pushy or I cut you off in conversation. I get it. Let's not talk about it too much, because you will put yourself into an infinite loop of insecure feelings that you're not making your relationship easier, or you're making your relationship more imperfect by this nature of yourself that is supposed to be a good thing. Your Venus in Virgo is still your Venus. You have to accept that this criticizing, trying to be perfect and make everything perfect is a part of who you are. Don't mistrust it. Just get in tune with it. Don't mistrust it. Just get in tune with it. And your partner will always feel a little bit like they're being sandbagged by this nature of yours. But if they've got some earth in them, then they'll be able to deal with that Venus in Virgo, understanding that you're just getting through your complicated, ill feelings of things that just happen all the time. And if they're a really good lover for you, they'll even appreciate it. Now, I've just talked a lot about this combination from the moon sign and the Venus sign. Usually I would talk a little bit about moon in Libra. Essentially, moon in Libra just likes the intricate rituals of old-fashioned courtship, of being wooed with finesse and sophistication. The rose petals on the stairway leading up to a bottle of champagne in the bathtub, if that's something that you enjoy. Or, like all the little accoutrements of things that if your partner knows that you enjoy all these things, moon in Libra just wants to be shown again that your partner's thinking about these things in the same way that you think about them. And you also want to be able to do these things for your partner. A special night of walking amongst the stars and just talking with your partner and looking and saying, is this where you thought you'd be when you're 32 years old? What do you want to be when you were growing up? Like those kind of sentimental learning about the partner, those kinds of things is just what you live for, really. And it doesn't need to be on an all-expensive paid trip to Cuba, Cabana, and some magical place. It could just be through your own community park, where you're walking through and just talking about the things in your community and talking about who you are and what you can do with the future together. This is the kind of thing that Moon in Libra does. It's those simple enjoyments. Or really, more so, the sentimental. Moon in Libra is sentimental. Moon in Libra wants to be liked by their partner. And the thing that needs to be liked is your cynical, sometimes funny, but truly psychologically intelligent Venus in Virgo, who's simple and who knows how to detach from things that are exacerbating and vexatious to the spirit. Where you can be counted on to not need to be coddled, or not need to go on a date to the restaurant and to be paid a whole bunch of money, or to have lavish presents and gifts put onto you. You don't need that. You're simple, and you just like to have time together with your partner knitting while they watch TV. Simple shit like that. And for them to look over you and say, I couldn't imagine doing this with anybody else. That is probably the picture-perfect experience that you could have. Now, that's what the moon in Libra is like. Now, our final discussion here. It's been a long video. I expected this is the difficult combination, so I had to talk about all the difficulties. Now we're going to have a final reading from Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. This is talking about the moon in Libra interrelated with Venus in Virgo by this author, Phyllis Vega. Moon in Libra with Venus in Virgo. A perfectionist in love and in life, you're not likely to settle for less than the best just because you dislike being alone. Okay, sorry, I read that weird. You're not likely to settle for less than the best simply because you dislike being alone. You are somebody who this is the moon in Libra. Loneliness is this freaky thing, especially because you don't get much enjoyment out of life. You don't look to have enjoyment in life in a big way because your Venus is debilitated in Virgo, which means that there's lack of water, there's lack of sustenance, there's lack of the enjoyment of the important things in life. Not just practically securing your needs through the moon in Libra and through that Venus in Virgo, but you ought to, that's part of who you are, but there is a lack of water, a lack of juiciness here, which is good, but at the same time, you would be well served to experiment with how you can best do this and enjoy the subjective meaningfulness in life with your partner. That'll help to secure a little bit of your moon's insecurity. And your Venus in Virgo's insecurity, which is essentially a pretty insecure place for Virgo, especially being in the 12th from the moon. Even after you find your ideal mate, you'll probably continue to notice his or her flaws and try to fix them. You'll want to be admired for this, and again, there's a balance that's got to be found there. Emotionally, you can be rather high maintenance, but no one makes a more doting or helpful companion than you. In or out of the bedroom, you are attentive, loving, and caring, and sentimental in all these sort of sweet little cute little ways. You do all kinds of little things to satisfy your significant other's desires and enhance his or her quality of life, which is a lovely thing. Just always make sure, like, imagine that you're like a person stranded on an island. You can catch a whole bunch of little rabbits and little traps and stuff, and it takes a lot of time and attention to do these little things. Or you can just sharpen some spears and get ready for like a deer and to get the big deer. For you, you can get exhausted and kind of life can become meaningless with these routine little sentimental satisfactions. What would be good for you once in a while is to tell yourself that you are special, you are deserving of love and the type of love that you seek as much as anybody else. So you should ask your partner to have sweet little moments or go on dates or something that's engaging to you but simple, because you do deserve that, and it will make your partner feel like they are with somebody who actually gives a shit about the internal subjective meaning in life, and they'll make them feel like you don't consider yourself a piece of shit, you have value, and this is important. It's good if one's partner feels like they're a piece of shit. What does that make the partner feel? It feels like I'm a piece of shit because I'm with a piece of shit. And if you devalue yourself and you don't consider it important to have a good, subjective, meaningful existence to your life through your particular way, which again might be simple, but that little walk through the park holding hands, if you don't instigate that once in a while, and you only just do, you'll get distracted with all the little things, and they will become meaningless. They will become routine and rote. So this is something to keep in mind. But ultimately, that is a part of who you are, and like I say with every combination, with enough intelligence about the mechanism of how your unconscious is working out through astrology and through therapy, any sign position can get on top of what it is and ultimately do what the moon is supposed to do, which is to adapt to what's given you and get the most out of the circumstance of the karma that you've been born with. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This has been a long video, but again, I expected it to be. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this. I'd love to hear your opinion on my opinion on this sign's signature. Take care, and I will hope to see you guys on whatever next video you watch of mine.